Okay, we made it happen. Big Gary Waterman, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me, to speak to my generation, and to try to make this information bite-sized for everyone to understand, because it's so overwhelming, all of this information, all of this fraud. I came across you about a month ago. You did a 5-part series connecting CERN, Elon Musk, the towers, the cell towers, and it blew me away. I instantly actually downloaded it straight away onto a hard drive. I felt like this information it's so undeniable now. We're getting to that kind of disclosure where it's irrefutable. It's on Company House's website. So thank you for the work you're doing. You must be looking at a computer screen a lot of the day. But yeah, I've been gravitated towards you, and so I'm really grateful that we can take this time. Before we start, Gary, I'd love to just read your own introduction, if that's okay. Can you see my screen? And if not, let me share it quickly. Here we go.
It's a pleasure being on here. Thank you so much for letting me speak to you. I really appreciate it.
We're doing some powerful works. This is it's been thousands of years of deception and lies, and it's coming to an end because of kind of people like yourself, who have courage. So anyways, let me read this. So this is irrefutable evidence of a decade-long international government fraud. Today I'm speaking of Gary Waterman, and I just want to introduce you, bro. So so Gary was a former UK Police Constable and a former director for a company called Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited that related to real estate in Bournemouth, Dorset. Since 2022, while being a director for this company, Gary has managed to acquire irrefutable, verifiable, and corroborative evidence of decade-long international government fraud involving the forgery of the Company House register and its incorporation documents. The government has created hundreds of thousands of criminal companies to facilitate the movement of trillions of pounds that can be defrauded from the masses through taxation and other financial institutions and funnel into any agenda they may have. They have created a complicated maze of companies to try and hide their crimes, but the evidence connections are now being fully exposed. And Gary, this is exactly what you're doing now. You're making sure that you're exposing this fraud, and it's more and more overwhelming. It's more and more sinister than I think a lot of people can understand. Like, could you share kind of a bit about your background first, just a little bit, and then we can kind of like speak about some relative topics.
Yeah, of course. So I was born in Kent in the southeast of England in 1977, brought up in what I thought was a relatively normal family. Now I know that unfortunately they're all involved, and that's now in my document. In 2000, I joined Kent Police, and I was a frontline police officer, so responding to all of the calls that were coming in. Tried to do my best for the victims. One of the reasons I joined was to literally try and help people and try and have an impact to help people. And I then transferred down to Dorset Police in 2006, not knowing anyone down there. It was purely to have a change of lifestyle, really, a change of scenery. I'd always lived in Kent and had no connections down there whatsoever. And again, I was frontline police officer, so responding to everything. I passed 2 parts of my sergeant's exam. Okay, so I became an acting sergeant, so I could actually have the position of a sergeant running a team of officers. I had never had any involvement with Freemasons, nobody ever approached me about being a Freemason or anything like that. I've now found out that they're practically running the world's international fraud that we're looking at, and they're trying to hide that, as well as potentially an infiltrated group behind it, which we can talk about if we get a chance. Anyway, I then, so I worked incredibly hard in the police, tried my best. I was my nickname was actually Duracell Bunny. I'm quite a small guy, but I would literally be running around. I'd be trying to go to all of the calls, trying to do my absolute best for everybody. Didn't like the traffic element. That wasn't why I joined the job. I would join to help, Mrs. Miggins, who's been burgled and victimized. That was what I wanted to deal with. Anyway, in 2016, Theresa May reduced the police numbers by about 20,000. And she also started closing loads of police stations. Sorry, did you want to say something?
No. Yeah, it was a big shift for the police at that time, right? 2016.
Yeah, it was huge. And interestingly, that's the year of the Pizzagate scandal. All right, which we're going to be touching on. And I think that is what's triggered a lot of what we've seen over the last few years. And what that did, I'll come back to what I was saying in a minute. What the Pizzagate scandal did is it started to make the connection to politics and the crimes against children. And they realised it was coming out. And then we'll talk about what happened since then afterwards. So going back to, so I was in, so Theresa May closed loads of police stations. We couldn't do our job. Okay, so we were literally being led to believe that we couldn't really investigate jobs properly and actually look for a reason not to continue an investigation. Well, I didn't join the job for that. I joined the job to do my absolute best. And I found it very odd. And now I know why. So it all now makes sense because of what I'm going to be telling you. So anyway, I lost my heart in the job. I took a career break in 2000 and what time? When did I tell you that? 2014. I'd taken a career break. Okay, so she'd come in 2016 after I took that career break. When I came back in 2000, and because I went off for 3.5 years with my wife traveling in a camper van, I then came back and it was just my heart was just not in the job because I found out about what had happened, realised what was going on, that we were being led to believe that we shouldn't be investigating the crime or certainly not putting as much effort into it because of the lack of resources. Yeah. So I ended up sorry, go on.
No, sorry, saying yeah, mad.
So I ended up resigning from the job. I worked out my finances, wanted to go travelling in a van, worked out that we could go travelling a lot more. So decided to leave the job and resigned. So going back a little bit before that, I was and I'll try and keep this short because otherwise we're going to be here for hours, just me telling you the introduction. But I was basically a director for a company that I bought a flat, okay, in a property, and I became a director for the company that oversees that property, presuming it was legitimate and lawful and legal. You know, I had no reason to believe it wasn't at that point. And then we had a roofing project in 2020, which led me to ask questions and want to look at the bank documents. I'd never seen them for the company. Well, that is what triggered this whole thing because the acting chairman became angry at me and resigned a few days later. So I knew there was something going on with the accounts within the company. And that is what's triggered the largest, not only the largest financial crime ever, but it's going to cause the end of the corruption of the world, or it's going to lead us into a very a triggered incident, which it appears they might be looking to cause, because we're talking about religious establishments all linked in behind this. So that's a little bit about me. So sorry, there's a lot more I could say, but I'll be here for hours.
No, thank you. What you said a sentence there, you know, this potentially could end the corruption of the world. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people in this kind of truther movement speak with this level of confidence, but it's not until I've actually seen the level of evidence that you're showing, which is, you know, undeniable, where you can actually see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know, you can actually see they must be shitting themselves. It's irrefutable. Too many people, you know, it's not on your shoulders anymore. Because of the videos and the effort, too many people, you know, are starting to be aware of this. They're starting to go to the, you know, some of these false companies and demanding, you know, the truth. And so it is a very pivotal time for consciousness, for the world, for the children that are suffering, because we're at that kind of tipping point. So it's been a few years then of you gathering this evidence and preparing. And I'm guessing the more and more you gather, the more like the very reason you're alive is being validated. You know, this is what you're here to do, to help to contribute to this awareness. So where would you like to take this, Gary? Where kind of like, what was the first thing that really shocked you and that you think was like, because like you said, the Pizzagate thing, a lot of people to this day still think it could have been a conspiracy or something to distract us. But when you've got the irrefutable evidence, it must be pretty overwhelming to think that this is actually the world that we live in.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a gradual increase in shock on me, to be honest with you, because it started with what I thought was going to be a small amount of money missing from a company and has escalated to exposing what this is really all about, which is a massive part is the children and the crimes against the children, tying in with what it appears that, now this is a big subject and I don't want to go too far off topic because you'll lose people's interest potentially, but the evidence is now pretty overwhelming that it's leading us into falsified tribulation periods and falsified prophecies, which is what they're aiming, because you've got the Vatican behind this, you've got the Church of England behind it, all tying in with the unaliving of children. But we'll try and keep more focused on the fraud element. So if I show you, so yeah, it's been a gradual shock to me, to be honest with you. And it's only recently that I've found the irrefutable links to all of this to the Pizzagate scandal, which has now made me realise that has triggered probably everything that has happened over the last few years, including the interventions that we were all forced to have. And I can talk about that now if you want, or we can I can show you an example of the fraud first, so you understand exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it. However you want to move forward, really.
Maybe I think maybe showing a bit of the fraud and just starting, starting there would be amazing. One thing you've just said though that I had to write down, and maybe it's a bit too off topic, but it's powerful. Like the falsified prophecy, the idea that they're kind of leading us towards some kind of like, the Armageddon, which seems to be biblical. But the more I see it, it's not an organic Armageddon. It's not like all of these things are happening organically. It's being created. And so you're the first person to say that, a falsified prophecy kind of future. And it shows you how deep this goes. It's not just a bit of money being siphoned from, yesterday you did a video, I saw a video of you yesterday, Richard Vobes, and you was talking about maintenance, the amount of that most fathers paying their maintenance. Most of that money is not even going to the mother. It's being siphoned off to something else. And it's like, I'm guessing when you realize that bit of fraud that was happening in your life, you suddenly realize it's happening in all aspects of society, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll show you what if we look at the company I'm going to show you first, and then I'll explain how that relates to the world's problems. That's okay, probably perfect. A really good way to start. And then from there, we can look at Tommy Robinson and how he ties into this, and also talk about the falsified biblical prophecies. So this is the evidential research document that I've done. Now they've removed my spell check and my grammar checking, okay, on my document. So forgive me, and everything's on my phone. So there are spelling mistakes. However, if you type in the word Vistra.
If you start that to me, V-I.
V-I-S-T-R-A.
Yep.
And you should see a link there.
Israel Cohen, personal appointments.
Okay, go to the, type in, I'm just trying to think, because if you type in Jordan.
After Vistra or just a whole new word?
No, get rid of Vistra. We'll start, because let's type in Jordan and then a separate word.
Yep.
And the symbol and.
Yep. And sons.
And sons, space sons.
Yep.
And you'll see a heading. Keep scrolling to the next entry, and you'll see a heading which is bigger and underlined saying Jordans and Sons. It'll be there somewhere, and that's the start of the main evidence. So keep going. I'll tell you when you see it on the next search of Jordans and Sons.
Oh, yeah,
You'll see it.
So,
yeah, keep going to the next one. There it is. Okay, so you've got Jordans and Sons Limited there. If you scroll down, you'll see a link to Vistra Limited. So scroll down, you'll see a link. It'll be in blue, obviously. There we go. Link to Vistra Limited. Click on that. And then because I know this off by heart, and I'll show you the main connections here. Okay, so this company now, what we're in now is the Companies House Records. So this is the government's own registration system. Okay, and this is where most of the evidence has been laid out for whatever reason. Everything else is supplementary and supportive to this. All right, this is really important. This is the best evidence that we've got of the government corruption. So we're going to look at, and I'm going to explain from this company how this works. Okay. So the top company, you can see that's what the last name is for this company, Vistra Limited. If you scroll down to the bottom, the page, you will see two other names that this company previously had. You can see at the bottom there, Jordans and Sons Limited, and the one above it, Jordans Limited. Now notice the name at the bottom, Jordans and Sons Limited. On the right, they claim that this is the only name this company had, because these are the previous names that this company had before Vistra Limited. Okay, if that makes sense. So starting from the bottom, the oldest going up to, as they changed the names, to Vistra Limited. And you can see they've said that it had only Jordans and Sons Limited as a name from the 30th of November, 1965 until 1996. Okay, so that's what our government has said. This is really important to understand this. Now go into the filing history. So if you go up to the top of the screen, and you'll see a link saying filing history, just the second one, that's it on that tab. And click on where it says, see where it says incorporation on the right-hand side, there's a little tick box.
Yep.
Right, now scroll down to the bottom. Now we're going to look at the incorporation document for this company. It's right at the bottom of this page. Keep going right to the bottom. And if you see where it says incorporation there.
Yeah, view PDF.
Yeah, view the PDF. So this is a document that when a company starts, they fill out this document, okay, and generally the older ones are signed. It becomes a legal document. So if any part of this document is criminal or fraudulent, then the whole company is illegal and fraudulent. And Companies House, who control the register, which is a government organisation, have a simple task. One of their simple tasks is to transfer the information from this document onto the electronic register. Okay, it's a very simple task, and they've attached the document to the register, so we know where they're basing it on this document. Well, if you go to many of the pages here, you'll see a hidden name. Can you see where it says Hammerplag Limited all over the documents?
Yeah, the name of the company is Hammerplag Limited. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so they have lied, because this document is 1965 dated. They've put that the only company name that this ever had was Jordan & Sons Limited from 1965 to 1996. Well, that's a lie.
Wow.
Straight away, that's a crime by our government, because they control the register. They've lied and falsified the register. Now, what does this mean on an international crime level? Well, what this means is this company should never have been trading from the time of the forgery, okay? Because it's not legally registered properly and correctly. And for a company to trade legally, it has to be registered legally. And it hasn't been. And it's been registered fraudulently by our government. So this creates a criminal company, first of all. That means that anyone that uses that company is at risk, because there's no accountability and liability because of the forgery. Now, they've done this with the vaccine companies. So AstraZeneca UK is also a criminal organisation creating interventions you're all being forced to have in your arm, where there's no accountability and liability. And they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. They know this is criminal. They know it's illegal. It's illegal under the Fraud Act, 2006 Fraud Act, and the Theft Act 1968. In their own legislation, they've committed a crime, okay? Now, what they've done is they've had international governments jumped on the bandwagon of this, and the City of London are now running an international organised criminal underworld network with criminal companies now running the world, okay? And the banks have come in on it. So that what the banks are doing, not only have the banks got criminal companies, they're assisting the fraudulent companies by falsifying their accounts and funneling the real money through into offshore accounts using Swift international transaction system. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's worth absolutely trillions. But even more sinisterly, there's been no verification, which is how one of the ways they've been getting away with this. And what I mean by that is anyone can start an organization. Since 1844, when Companies House first started, no verification on names, no verifications on addresses. So that means false names, false addresses can be used, which again removes the accountability and liability. Now, this is deliberate by the governments. You've got lords, MPs, prime ministers, politicians, heads of police, heads of government organisations, heads of military, all jumped on the bandwagon and involved in it. Okay. And what it means is that is facilitating all of the world's problems. So what they've got is international conflicts, including World War I and World War II, will be because of this. Okay, because what they are doing is they're funneling illegal money from the public through tax, through fake defense contracts. Okay, so that creates the motivation of the wars, or at least an illusion of the war as well. Now, a certain element of what we're seeing probably isn't even happening, whether it's special effects, artificial intelligence, AI, etc. Okay, and then they're pretending or making people believe there's a risk of a conflict, so that people feel more justified in paying more tax, and then they're defrauding the tax from everybody and funneling it through into offshore accounts. Now, it isn't just with conflicts. So this is with international terrorism. So I've now found verifiable evidence that proves that every single major terrorist incident so far links to the exact same companies. All right. So this means we've got the same people staging all of the terrorist incidents. Now, why would they do that? Well, they would do that because they can funnel money through the agenda of the terrorism. They can also use the staged terrorist incidents to imply or implement stricter digital control over humanity, but use that control to actually target those that are risking exposing their system. Okay, so a lot of this will be identifying who's trying to expose this. We'll shut them down. We'll unalive them. We'll silence them in some way. Okay. Also, it creates a risk of conflict and divide between faith groups and ethnicities. It's all staged because if we fight amongst ourselves, then of course it distracts from the system.
Yeah.
We are all brothers and sisters of humanity, all right, but they've made us believe that we should fear each other. And of course, the terrorist agenda supports that, because we're all thinking, okay, there's a Muslim faith group, for example, involved in a lot of this, when actually it's the international government system, the intelligence agencies, the police, and people they've infiltrated within those faith groups. So they've infiltrated all faith groups to assist in that agenda as well.
Definitely.
But even more sinisterly than that, is we have the unaliving of the children in all of this, okay? Which then you're starting to go into the realms of what this is really about, because this is tying into a cult system where, for whatever reason, they've believed that they've had to sacrifice and unalive children for their cult system.
And for their religious belief.
And this is then linking in with adrenochrome as well. And what they're trying to do is use the Jeffrey Epstein list and Ghislaine Maxwell, etc., to talk about sexual abuse of children, but it's actually much more sinister than that. And it actually links into the torture and the unaliving of children, tying in with the falsified biblical prophetic technology, such as the colliders, which all of my evidence converges on the collider technology from all angles. You come
in. When you say collider, are you talking about the technology in Switzerland, in CERN?
Yeah, so you've got the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, in Geneva, and you've also got a second collider. Now, there's only two operating ones at the moment. There's the one in Geneva, and you've got one in New York, which a lot of people don't even realise that. But they've had others. They had one in Germany, but there's only two operating colliders at the moment, according to the research. Now, what this does is that this technology appears to be leading them into a falsified prophetic situation on the earth. And this is why I think you've got, and then there's irrefutable connections now to the Vatican, to the Church of England, the people that initiated my removal from the company, okay? Because when I started to find out what was happening, I acquired a set of forged bank documents. And because I was a director, I said, well, I'm not filing these accounts because they're criminal, all right? So they ended up removing me as a director and filing those accounts, all right? I found evidence showing that the police were involved, the Home Office, the Serious Fraud Office, the Independent Office for Police Conduct, all involved. They tried moving everybody from the heads of those organisations as I continued the exposure. I had two emails from Dorset Police confirming inadvertently they were allowing the banks to provide forged bank documents for these illegal entities. All right. So, and this explains why, I'll just give you a reason why this is not about ultimately materialism, financial agenda. This is about a spiritual, conclusive agenda in all of this, because you've got key individuals, including people within my family, that are not in a materialistic lifestyle. So they're living in council properties. They've got cars that don't, not very flash cars. Now, these people I've now connected almost directly to key figures in this fraud through the research. So Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Julian Assange, the main Freemason Lodge, Ghislaine Maxwell, David Icke is a really big one, because David Icke ties in with the falsified prophetic events that it looks like they're trying to create. So yeah, if you've got any questions, because I know how big this is sounding.
One thing, we definitely have to touch at some point on the David Icke, because I heard in one of your videos where you talk about the CERN, how I think I'm going to butcher this, but he has a company which facilitates like kidnapping or something like that. There was something you said, and I've always thought this guy David Icke, he's not the one. He's not the one, man. And I've been quite connected to his family actually growing up. So it would be interesting to touch on that, because you might be one of the first people that can irrefutably prove that he's not as benevolent as people think.
100%. I've got the evidence. It's in the document. I don't know whether you want to look at that now, or I'll just explain it and then we look at it.
If we could look at it, that would be really unfathomable to prove this.
Yeah, okay, so we'll try and do it from the document. As I've said, if this doesn't work from here, I might have to get the screenshots and do it, but we'll try. We'll see how we get on.
Yeah.
So if you type in the name, type in David Icke.
Okay, perfect. 1 second. So, all right, so.
And you should see where his name is, start with where you see his face. There'll be a picture of him. That's the bit you want to go to.
Okay, so let's have a look.
And we won't look at Julian Assange yet, but he's very important because he links to a doomsday cult, which then ties in with everything I'm talking about. So here we got David Icke. So I can't see. Go up a little bit. What's that first bit? There we go. Yeah. Okay. So David Icke links into the research. If you go down a little bit more, you can see I've just put a link to his Wikipedia just so people can research him. And if you go down a little bit more, there's some links to an interview that he did in 1991. You'll see 2 links. There you go. So we don't worry about looking at them, or you can. But in 1991, David Icke came out. He did an interview with Terry Wogan. And he started saying that he was acting on behalf of the God's Head, okay? And what he was saying is that the world would be devastated by earthquakes and tsunamis. Now, later on in the document, if we get a chance, I'll show you confirming evidence that he links to the intelligence agencies, all right? So that means he was positioned by the intelligence agencies to tell the world that it will be devastated by earthquakes and tsunamis. There's a second interview there, and people can search this, either looking at the document or searching it themselves, where in 2006, he did a second interview with Terry Wogan. And that interview was talking about the World Trade Center disaster, which had happened earlier, okay, between those 2 interviews. Now, 1991 is the same year that the relativistic heavy ion collider was started to be built in New York, okay, the same year that David Icke said that. And I've got the evidence linking him to the intelligence agencies, which we can prove through this document. So he was also a professional footballer prior to doing this interview. And the football industry is a massive part of what we're seeing because they can launder the money through the football clubs, okay, and hide it under the high wages of the footballers. Okay. So if we go through this, all evidence, I'm trying to read it, appears to show. So if you scroll down, you'll see another link to his company's house records. Okay, now this is where we might struggle because what I won't see, so we'll have to flip between this. So if you click on the Phantom Self Limited,
let's have a look.
Okay, and you'll see that his if you go into the people record, you'll be able to see his name just to confirm that you're looking at him. Scroll down. I don't know how many are on here. Okay, there's not many. So there you go. So you've got David Icke. Okay. So if you flip back to the document, there's also his son, Gareth, who I did an interview with months ago on there.
Well, this is why I'm interested because Gareth actually dated my cousin when my cousin lived in the Isle of Wight. And so I had a strong connection with David Icke for years until I grew older and older and I started to realize I've been biased just because of my family. Something's up with this guy, man. The way he would look at me, his energy, I was like, there's something dark about this person. So this is mind-blowing to me because a lot of people think he's like, Jesus coming.
Yeah, well, I did an interview with Gareth and I could tell it was rushed. I got 15 minutes. And then afterwards, I asked to do an interview with David Icke and they never responded until I started exposing some of the evidence I had on David Icke. They sent in one of their employees on one of my Telegram channels saying, this is ridiculous, you can't be saying that. And I said, well, it's all there in black and white in the company's house records. I'm not saying anything that's not true. Wow. Anyway, she then said, I can't remember her name, she was going to arrange an interview, never heard from them again. And then since then, I've found even more evidence linking him into the key parts in all of this. Okay, so if you go back to flip between the document because I haven't got it in front of me. You see, so so underneath it says a separate. What does it say above that? Sorry, where it says above. What? Go to that's it. That first, David Icke. What does that say?
The David Icke connects to several companies, but appears to have duplicate records on companies' houses. One of these records connects to Phantom Self Limited that was incorporated on the 4th of April 2016, the same year as the ritual at CERN. The filling history shows that its registered address was in February 2019 on the lead up to the pandemic, basically. And
I can't read it very well, actually, because my eyes probably aren't as good as yours on here.
Manor, and less than 2 weeks after the Queen's apparent death, it shows that an application was made to strike the company from the register in 2023. As I continue to expose, Jamie Alexander Icke of an address on the Isle of Wight is shown on the incorporation document. Jamie is his youngest son, for anyone that's wondering. Shall I carry on? So it says here, a separate search of PFK Smith Coopers in Company's House reveals PFK Smith Cooper Audit Limited, that was incorporated as Smith Cooper Services Limited in 1996, 5 years before the World Trade Center. It is a criminal company, having been incorporated with Swift Incorporation Limited and Jordan's Limited, the same as Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited. The filing history shows that the registered address for this company was also changed on 21st of September 2022. So a lot of like backhand movements happening for David Icke and these companies he's associated with.
Oh, massive. So as I'm exposing the fraud, they're dissolving things. They're changing the company names, changing the company addresses. I mean, within 3 days of me sending my evidence to the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab announced that he was stepping back as the chair. That's how big this is. And he had been the chair since 1971 when it first started. And as you know, he then actually resigned the same day that the Pope died. Okay. And they timed that. That's all staged. I doubt the Pope actually died. So yeah, when you go in through the records, you can see exactly what I'm saying here. And it actually leads to, that bit's really important.
So go back to this.
Yeah, so I'm struggling to read it, actually. I really probably need the screenshots. But if we go back to where you were reading, so PKF changed all its addresses. What's the next bit? Oh, you can see the change is 21st of September. That's as I'm exposing everything, okay, within the company. And then go down to the next
Gary,
bit.
You feel that this is almost like literally as a direct response to the individual work that you're doing? Because also about 2 years ago, there were so many CEOs that were stepping down. And I can only imagine it's because of people like you that were bringing the irrefutable proof that they had to step down. Otherwise, you know, they're incriminating themselves.
100%. It's definitely, this is causing so many changes. They're panicking massively. I think Theresa May stepped down because of the exposure of this, because I actually did a document on her, exposed it. She then stopped being an MP. All of the MPs around Bournemouth have now resigned or are not MPs anymore. The chief constable got moved, the assistant chief constable, the head of Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Council resigned as I was exposing this, and then they got I then found out that the companies they were funneling the council tax through were linked straight to Vistra, the company I've just been talking to you about. I mean, this is absolutely what this is all about. 100%, absolutely no question in my mind.
Gary, in layman's terms, just to slightly simplify it, so David Icke owns companies, but they're not genuine, or they're being used for ciphering money. What do you think? Like, other than being like a false prophet to lead us down like a, you know, to not empower us, but to scare us. And all he does is just muddy the waters. He never gives us like an actual he's not doing what you're doing, you know, like, but yet he's going around the world. What do you think his actual purpose was? And what do you think all of this is for? Because I'm seeing words like PDF here for children, kidnap maybe. It's quite shocking.
Yeah, it is. So he ties in massively into the falsified biblical prophecies, right? Tying in with the collider technology. So it may be, and one thing I have to consider in all of this is that they've laid up all of this evidence for the right people to expose it as some sort of test upon humanity to see if humanity. That's one thing I've got to consider with all of this. But at the moment, I've got to perceive all of these risks that I'm uncovering in this as being real. And I know on a very basis level, okay, if everything else is deception, 100% we are living under a criminal financial system that deliberately allows the crimes against humanity and particularly against the children. That's an absolute certainty. Yeah. Okay. Then from that, I've had to build all of this evidence in and linking it into what he's doing. So he connects, you'll see through the document, and when you verify it, he connects to a key film company. And film companies are what links all areas of the research, okay? And those film companies, I believe, are being used for the torturing and the unaliving of children, okay? And that's why I think you've got all of these key film companies. And there you'll see he links to one where it had a name of Victoria Films, I think, which I suspect is going to be reference to the Queen. He's also linked into another name of the Liberty Films Company. That relates to the National Council for Liberties and the Liberty Group, which had an actual affiliation to the Paedophile Information Exchange. So if you research, Harriet Harman was the MP for the National Council for Civil Liberties. She was forced into doing an interview talking about this affiliation to the Paedophile Information Exchange. Well, the National Council for Civil Liberties is under the Liberty banner group, okay? And here you have a Liberty Film Company. Wow. They've now removed the two records for the Victoria Company and the the Liberty Company. They've removed them from the records. You can't actually find them anymore.
Wow.
And this links in then to the World Trade Center disaster, because it's all connected to what I'm telling you. Because the National Council for Civil Liberties, okay, as I've said, are under the Liberty banner group, the Liberty groups, and a company, Larry Silverstein, purchased or acquired the lease for the World Trade Center building on the 24th of July, I believe it was, 2001, a few months before the World Trade Center disaster. Okay, and after the disaster, he acquired a Liberty grant from the US government, okay, for the insurance and to rebuild, etc., whatever was going to happen with the location. Yeah. Well, that's the Liberty group again, okay, and they've removed a company document, a name from a company document, which I can show you fairly quickly on this. From an actual incorporation document, they've literally removed the company name, which is major serious fraud, because that made the connection to the Paedophile Information Exchange, the National Council for Civil Liberties, and the World Trade Center disaster, and the money laundering in relation to that location. Wow. So it's all connected. It's all connected. It's no coincidence that Donald Trump became the 45th president in 2017. Remember, the year after the Pizzagate scandal. Remember, I've been telling you that everything's been triggered since then. He came in fraudulently, I believe, from the research I've got, 45th president, 4 and 5 equals 9. He then came back in as the 47th president, 4 and 7 equals 11. That's 9/11. That's the same date as the World Trade Center disaster. Wow. Right? It all ties in with this. The World Trade Center building was actually conceived as an idea in 1966, which is the year of the Church of Satan, founded, and it was actually finished being built in 1973, which is 2 years after the World Economic Forum was formed, and it's the same year as other key things happened, tying in with the MK Ultra program as well, which we could go into. But yeah, I can actually verify everything I'm telling you. But what you need to do is flip between the document and the links, or I need to come back with it. So I've got the screenshots separately, and then I can literally show you everything from the Company's House records, proving everything that we're talking about.
Well, let's maybe try it. It's just reading here, it's just crazy to think that David Icke could be potentially connected to the blood taken from tortured children.
Yeah. I've actually seen an interview, okay, with somebody claiming they were victimized by him, but also that they witnessed him involved in the torture and unaliving of children, and that was in a monastery. Now, obviously, I can't that's only what I'm telling you from what someone said, so I'm not saying that's true. I'm just telling you an interview that I've seen.
Yeah.
But you've got connections now via the Company's House records to him, to the unaliving of children, because this now links in with the Pizzagate scandal. It also links in with the Hort de la Garande case on Jersey, okay, which is key to a lot of and you may not be aware of that. So it was an incident where multiple body parts were found of children in the basement of a building on the Isle of Jersey. Okay, wow. And that actually links in with Jimmy Savile, and they tried covering that whole thing up. It also ties in with the Hampstead child abuse inquiry. So David Icke links very quickly in with everything I'm telling you about, because this is a centralized criminal system with a fairly small number of people running the whole thing at the top that are actually linking in with the Vatican, the main Freemasons Lodge, and all of the key individuals that we're aware of. It actually links in extremely quickly. So, yeah, you've got the Hampstead Child Abuse Inquiry. If you're not aware of that, then that was 2 children, a leaked interview, supposedly showing them being interviewed by the police, and they claimed that not only were they sexually abused, but they were made to take part in the unaliving of babies and children and the drinking of blood of these children. Well, I've now found irrefutable connections from that back into everything we're talking about, and that does link in with David Icke as well, massively.
Yeah, a lot of people don't really, the Hampstead Heath situation, they're not aware of how Keir Starmer tried to protect that and stop that getting exposed. A lot of people don't realize, they think that when it comes to the abuse of children, it's the guy at the end of the road in the shed, but it's the biggest organization on the planet. It's a very structured business model, you know, like, you know, I'm sure you've heard of Wayfair, the company that was like transporting children. And obviously the Pizzagate, I think, is something which is important to touch on, because I think people, because of cognitive dissonance, the brain can't really allow yourself to go there to think that this is actually happening. You know, I think it was you I heard yesterday when you were speaking to Richard Vobes, in the UK alone. Yeah, it was you. 100,000 children a year are going missing. And then Richard was asking you, but how does that practically happen when, you know, if you've got 30 people in your area and then 15 are gone, like where are them 15 going? But it's because of you said it's done so that it's just like systematically, no one even sees these children. No one even knew they existed, kind of thing.
Well, they actually control. So throughout my research, you've got the missing person companies linking in with the fraud. So they're able to falsify the missing person records, the numbers as well. Okay, now we do have to consider, and I hope this is the case, that what they're portraying through the because they're also telling us a lot now, aren't they? Let's face it, we're seeing it all of the time, people supposedly being convicted of child abuse or whatever. We've got loads of clear disclosure of criminal activity involving children. Yeah. So that for whatever reason that appears to have increased since the exposure of this fraud. It seems to be coming out a lot more. There's a good chance that they're using that to make people believe that they're resolving it, but allowing the system in the background to continue regarding the unaliving of the children, which is tying in with the company's house fraud that I'm telling you about. And also what they can do is use those investigations to auto conceal and destroy the evidence in relation to the bigger problem. Now, as I've been exposing this, there's been numerous fires and explosions that are tied into my exposure. So you've actually had some examples. You had an explosion at a JP Morgan bank in America as I was exposing this. That's when I'm making connections to JP Morgan. JP Morgan linked to the Flemings. Remember, the Flemings initiated my removal. They brought her in. Deborah Fleming, okay, was an NHS chief executive on the Isle of Wight, Hampshire and Dorset area. Okay, yeah. She's key to this. The Fleming family are a huge part of this. They're linked to a church network. Okay, so again, this ties in with the falsified biblical prophecies element of this. It's possible a lot of the evidence that I'm exposing, they've left a trail of evidence to expose it, but that ultimate exposure may be a deliberate deception to make humanity believe potentially that these crimes are really happening against the children. I think they are, because the evidence is really overwhelming, but I've also got to think, are they setting this up to make humanity to believe this is happening as an experiment against humanity? Is humanity going to continue being part of a system that facilitates the unaliving of children, or are they going to do the right thing and actually stand up and stop complying to it? And if they don't, are they trying to bring a judgment against a false judgment against humanity, tying in with the falsified biblical prophecies? That's something. I'm not saying that is the case. I'm saying I have to consider that's what they're doing with this potentially.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely that. There's the idea that, you know, lessening their karmic retribution. So they're leaving trails because they're hoping that no one finds it, but at least they put the evidence out there. It's out in the ether. And so they feel like they're not going to receive the bad karma for the simple fact that they've told someone. It's just unfortunate for them that you've got your head screwed on and you know what you're looking for, and you know you're connected. You must be working with a higher power, though. The God, the universe, you know, it's backing you to be doing this work. I'm sure you find a lot of synchronicities. You must be researching and like things happen. You're like, wow, I wasn't even searching for this, but look what's come up. Like you said, the missing people, you wasn't even really searching for the fraud in that, and then it all got exposed to you.
100%. I'm being guided by the creator. There's certain things that have happened that's the only explanation. One example is somebody gave me some evidence about the Ninth Circle, which, if you haven't heard of the Ninth Circle, it's supposedly the name given to the Vatican and the royal family being involved in the unaliving of children and basically doing hunting parties, torturing them and then murdering them. Anyway, I had this evidence and I went to sleep either that night or the night after, I can't remember, and I had a dream. And that dream was about me being in a McDonald's restaurant, and there was Ronald McDonald, and everything felt fine. I felt happy. And suddenly I had this overwhelming feeling of deceit, and it woke me up to about 5 or 6 in the morning. I woke up, and I don't normally remember any dreams. Okay, but this was really vivid. Anyway, I thought, oh, okay, I'm just going to research the Ninth Circle, thinking about what they were telling me or what the evidence I had. And there straight away was a clown. Okay, and it was Art the Clown from a movie called The Ninth Circle that came out in 2008, which is a key year in all of this and how it ties into my life. That prompted me to then research McDonald's more. And what I found was overwhelming evidence suggesting that McDonald's is what they're using to put the remains of the children into the food chain through the food network. So, I mean, there's so much evidence. This then ties in with Tommy Robinson, believe it or not. So if you want to talk about Tommy Robinson,
amazing,
we can.
yeah. I mean, well, that's, you know what, first of all, well, I'm guessing you don't eat McDonald's no more. Because
No.
You know, we definitely are living in a sadist, satanic, cannibalistic system, and they're cannibalizing us so that we become less human, I guess. And this like demiurge energy is really prevalent. But okay, so moving kind of more to relevant times. So we're in September now, September the 3rd or 2nd, I believe we are. And on September the 13th, there is the biggest ever so-called, you know, anti-migrant, anti-Muslim, whatever it is, protest, full of xenophobic energy, in my opinion. So maybe if you could speak about Tommy Robinson, because just to give you my opinion on him without doing no research, he's a psyop. He's a false leader put there to stir the pot, to make race issues. You know, like for instance, he's not talking about the digital ID. He's not talking about the fact that the Navy, our own Navy, could stop the ships. All he's doing is directing it to race, the Muslim grape gangs. And I watched an interview recently with James English, and there was this beautiful Pakistani man, and he's exposed in a different way to how you're exposing the fraud, but he's exposed how the majority of these Muslim grape gangs, they're actually working for like Labour or they're working for the politicians, and they're just like the pit bulls on the streets collecting all of these Western women for the powers that be that are higher than them. And so to be angry and to be so militantly aggressive at just the Muslims, to me, defeats the point when there's higher beings at play that are using these Abrahamic religions just to create civil war. They're laughing at us, all of us. They don't care if you're Muslim or Christian or, do you know what? That's what it seems to me. And I think that Tommy Robinson's been put here, and part of his role is just to get this false patriarchal raise the flag energy, and because it actually drops us in frequency. Because as you said at the start, we're all inseparable. We're one family. So if you're focused at the Muslims thinking they're the problem, when they're actually coming from a war-torn country, and yes, a lot of them could be sleeper cells, a lot of them could be, you know, agents that are coming in to infiltrate us. But Tommy Robinson is too powerful, and he's activating the boy in men. He's not activating the sovereign man. He's activating the childish boy in people, and it's very, very dangerous, I think.
Well, he's 100% part of the deception. I've got the evidence proving it. So if I go back to, first of all, if you're not aware of the Albert Pike letter, you really need to be aware of the Albert Pike letter. Okay, that was written, a guy called Albert Pike lived in the mid-1800s. He was a high-level Freemason. Now, remember, I've got the evidence linking in with the main Freemason lodge. I've also got connections into the Knights Templar via my families as well. Anyway, so that letter was written to Mazzini, who was the head of the Illuminati, according to the research, in 1871. All right, so that's a few years after Company's House started. And that letter, so Mazzini, obviously Illuminati, then links back in with the Vatican. And this letter set out the 3 world wars. And when you look at the Third World War element of that, you will see exactly what is playing out at the moment. So first of all, people need to understand that. And it talks about creating a risk of conflict and divide to cause disillusion, confusion, people not knowing where to render their adoration, how to manifest a result or the right conclusion in things. And what this will enable them to do is to come in under that deception and maintain order and a one world control agenda, leading to their ultimate agenda, which appears to be tying in what I'm talking about. So first of all, if you're not aware of the Albert Pike document you really need to be aware of that, everyone that's listening to this. Secondly, in relation to Tommy Robinson specifically, so I tried approaching him months ago, knowing that he was already connected to the fraud, but thinking, okay, he's got a platform. He's saying, at least he's trying to rally sort of people together to do something against the establishment, because that's what it appeared to be. So I found out he was connected, tried contacting him through his group called Urban Scoop, had emails, which I've still got, confirming that they'd passed his mobile number, my mobile number, to him. Now, bearing in mind, I'm saying, look, I've got evidence of police corruption and government corruption, everything he's supposedly talking about. I never heard from him.
So he's not interested.
Yeah. So I then went through Mayor Toosey. Now, Mayor Toosey is an associate of Tommy Robinson, and he has an Iranian background. So straight away, you have a connection to the infiltration of the Muslim faith, okay, as part of the deception and agenda against humanity. So I had an interview with Mayor Toosey because his listeners had pressurized him into doing an interview with me. So he did. And this was quite a few months ago, back last year. And anyway, that interview was rushed. It was 15 minutes. He looked extremely uneasy. Afterwards,
I think I know him. He's like he's like a family guy, right? He's got quite a big news channel. He's got like almost 1 million subscribers. I think I've seen him.
Yeah, he's really big. He's really big.
So he's a psyop.
So anyway, yeah, he's definitely part of the deception. Definitely part of the deception, 100%.
Wow.
100%. Because I had contact with him on WhatsApp because of this interview. So I kept saying, look, I'm not hearing from Tommy. Can you arrange at least a discussion with me? You work with him a lot. Anyway, it never happened. I then found out that Mayor Toosey had a company linking to the research I'd already identified, linking with the Paedophile Information Exchange and the National Council for Civil Liberties, and everything else that I've been telling you about ties back in with Mayor Toosey. Immediately on one of his company records. I also then found another connection to a company called Iris. Anyway, so he's connected to the fraud. Then I researched Tommy Robinson more. And now what I've found is that he links to Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, like far too quickly to be a coincidence. This is the company that I was removed from for refusing to file the forged bank documents. The links into the Flemings, links into the police, and everything that I'm telling you about, okay?
Yeah.
Also, he also links to a Evergreen company. Now, Evergreen is the company that was the boat. It was the name of the boat that got stuck in the Suez Canal in 2021. And Evergreen, I've now confirmed in the document from Hillary Clinton, you have Evergreen connections. This now ties back in with the Pizzagate scandal again, all right, via Evergreen. So this is coming from the research of Tommy Robinson, okay?
Wow.
In there, you then, so when you've right near that Evergreen company, you've got a company called Brown Sugar Limited, which is a slang term for heroin. That's a criminal organisation. And then you go in, as I said, you then get connections to Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited. If you come in from another angle of Tommy, and I haven't got it in front of me, so I'm doing this from memory, but it's definitely from Tommy Robinson, the research of Tommy Robinson, you then hit a company called the Institute of Meat. Okay. And remember, I told you they'd removed the company name from the document linking the National Council for Civil Liberties to the Paedophile Information Exchange. They removed the company name from the Institute of Meat, the links to Tommy Robinson. Now, I've only seen that 2 or 3 times on over 200,000 company documents that I've looked at. Okay. And they've removed that company name. Now, when you look at and you do the research around the Institute of Meat, there's an address that links back into the Paedophile Information Exchange. Okay. Not only that, right by the Institute of Meat, you have a company called the Pie Company, which is PIE. That's an acronym for the Paedophile Information Exchange. Okay.
Wow.
When you go in through that, you then hit, you've heard of the Arla scandal, where the Bovaer poisoning within the dairy industry. You might not have heard of that.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about that,
Okay, you then see Arla companies coming in via the the PIE company, linking in from Tommy Robinson. Okay, so then you've got a connection from Tommy Robinson to Aylsham Village companies. Now, this is important because Aylsham Village ties in with the research of the infiltration of the royal family, which is a huge part of what we're seeing. It looks as though, from all of my evidence, they infiltrated the royal family with a doomsday cult tying in with the unaliving of children and the collider technology back in it looks as though it was from the beginning of the 1950s to the mid 1960s. And so Tommy Robinson links in with the Aylsham Villages company, where it looks like they may have kidnapped and taken the real heir to the throne and taken her to a village potentially there. When you go from that Aylsham Village company, it then connects almost immediately, okay, to a company called Initiative Property Management Limited. Now, when the Dorset police tried to get rid of my crimes and file as no further action, even though there's irrefutable evidence, and remember, they provided 2 emails that they were inadvertently confirming they were allowing the banks to produce forged bank documents, okay? They also leaked information, which I've got proof of, to John Fleming, who is Deborah Fleming's husband, okay? Remember, she was the one that initiated my removal. They leaked information to them, even though I'd already named them as prime suspects in an email to the police officer. All right, so I know the police. So where was I going with that? So after they filed my crime as no further action, they publicised an article where they were investigating the Initiative Property Management Limited. the same company linking to Tommy Robinson, coming from the infiltration of the royal family. And they publicised an investigation through this company, claiming it would be worth millions of pounds worth of fraud. I found connections from Initiative Property Management to Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited. Remember, they've been filing my crime, no further action. So they investigated it, publicised an investigation, didn't search it until a month later, and publicised a search of that premises a month after the initial investigation. Well, you never do that in the police. You never say you're investigating something and don't search it for a month. You literally go and search. That's the first thing you do, is want to search a premises, because you secure and preserve the evidence. So this was deliberately used to alter, conceal, and destroy evidence, probably linking everything I'm exposing and tying in with the infiltration of the royal family as well, and how this all links with Tommy Robinson.
Tommy Robinson must be getting a lot of money, but in like offshore accounts and stuff, right? Like they must be trying to build and set up his life so that he can just fulfill his mission. I think, like you said, he's helping to bring about this like false prophecy, you know, end of days, you know, very biblical wars, the Muslims versus the Christians. It's very barbaric and tribal.
Yeah, it all ties in with the falsified biblical prophecy elements that I'm telling you about. All links in with Israel. Even mentions in the Albert Pike document. It mentions Palestine and Israel and talks about that as part of the agenda. And that letter was actually removed, according to the research, from the British Museum Library on the year I was born in 1977. So it was taken out of public view from the museum. When you research through the Companies House records, which again is on the document, from Jeffrey Epstein, you see the British Museum companies. When you come in from, I think it's from the Blood of the Children, by the research of the adrenochrome, you see the British Museum as well. So I think this document was real, setting out the 3 world wars, and we're in that third world war element of it now. So yeah, Tommy Robinson is definitely part of the deception and the criminal network that's in place. I think there's also going to be a deception surrounding Israel itself. I mean, I've actually got information that's suggesting Jerusalem is not even in Israel as part of their deception, which now makes a lot of sense, okay, because the Rothschilds were involved in the fomenting of Israel, okay? They were involved in the Balfour Declaration of 1917, which led to Israel as it is today. And the Rothschilds are right the way through my research, massively implicated in the fraud. They then connect, a lot of people haven't heard of the Goldsmith family. Okay, now the Goldsmiths are quite key to a lot of what's going on, and they changed their name from Goldschmidt to Goldsmiths to try and hide the connection in the research. Now, remember that a lot of what I'm saying is I'm saying it because it's supported by the government's own trail of evidence in their registration system. I'm not saying anything unless I can support it with the evidence in the government's own registration system and a trail of evidence through their own registration system. For whatever reason, there is a trail of evidence proving everything. Okay. So, and what's interesting about the Goldsmiths, which again, there's so many topics, it links everything together, is that there's an article suggesting that James Goldsmith was the real father of Princess Diana. This then links in with the evidence around her unaliving, tying in with Dougie Smith, who actually worked for James Goldsmith. Okay, and Douglas Smith is the special advisor. He's well worth looking at. Yeah, Douglas Smith. Okay, he was the special advisor for the last few UK prime ministers. Right, so before the World Trade Center disaster, he started being involved in politics. He went to, I think it was Cambridge University, and he actually threatened, according to the research, there was an allegation where he threatened to kill someone, and there was a mention of a handgun. He may have had a handgun. He also started up Fever Sex Parties, okay, which is a open orgy fest for the rich and famous, 5-star orgy fest for the under 40s, which you can research and find that out. So that's a huge part of the control mechanism. So he worked for James Goldsmith, okay.
The Goldsmiths, did they have a university, or like the Goldsmith University?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But when you research the Goldsmiths, they changed their name from Goldschmidt to Goldsmith. Now, the Goldschmidt origin is in Frankfurt in Germany, and they are a Jewish/German background. All right. So now this gives you the deception and the motive around this regarding the 2 world wars. Okay. Because the funding of the both sides. And of course, they're linked to the Rothschilds, and the Rothschilds are a massive worldwide banking family. Most of their companies have been fraudulently registered on Companies House, so they never even existed legally under their own system.
Yeah. So Gary, I've got about 15% battery, and I would like to to kind of just round this up for our first conversation. I would like to touch, if possible, a bit on and I don't want you to go too much into the evidence because you've already done these videos, so I can direct people to it. But just kind of your opinions on what CERN and 5G on Elon Musk is doing, because I've read in one of your documents, it's basically the biggest threat to the whole of humanity. This is the biggest threat that you could imagine. I mean, everyone's focusing on nuclear weapons and they don't even understand the threat which is being built outside their bedroom window. And I think that's done by design personally. But I was wondering if you could maybe touch on that to round it up a bit, because there's so much misinformation and fear around the 5G towers and all of this stuff. But the research you've done blew me away, because it's nothing compares to it. Like you said, it's all you only deal with things that the government have already admitted or that is already out there, which makes this kind of research very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely a huge part of what's going on. So the cell towers actually link with CERN. CERN was actually involved in the technology in relation to the cell towers. Okay. Now, this, I think, is going to tie in with the falsified biblical prophecy element of all of this, because all of the evidence suggests that the cell towers are a risk of harm, either psychologically or physically, towards humanity. Now, if they're allowing that to be portrayed as well, okay, they're allowing that through certain bits of evidence for the public to believe that there's a risk from the cell towers. Now, remember, we've got the falsified biblical prophecy element in this. Now, if everybody was to go and remove all of the cell towers, what that potentially leads us into is the days of darkness written within the scripture, okay, the blackout of communication, which then leads us into a potentially falsified biblical prophetic situation and the tribulation period. So I think, according to all of the research, and again, we have to consider that they've set this up as the ultimate deception for the right person to actually say to humanity, look, with all of this evidence, and this is what I am saying, with all of this evidence, I believe the ultimate threat is the collider technology, okay, and how that ties in with the cell towers. So I'm actually leading us in potentially into a falsified biblical prophetic event, because I think from all of the evidence I've got that the cell towers are a risk of harm to humanity, and they're actually making us believe that. You may be aware they've just bought out a contract with a company called Few Marquees Limited, who have been given a 2-year contract to produce shelters for mass bodies, okay, in the event of
morgues, like a mass FEMA camp kind of vibe, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's for dead bodies. That's what they've actually claimed, okay, tying in with a mass fatality regime, linking in with everything I'm exposing. So they've deliberately done this to either make us all believe they're going to unalive loads of people, or they're actually going to unalive people. Now, I have to go with that second option at the moment and say to humanity, look, based on this evidence, I think these are the threats to you, and you need to do this now to start saving humanity and doing the right thing. Now, the whole thing with the colliders could be a deception, but all of my evidence suggests that they were hoping to actually end all of creation through the collider technology. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of evidence now, and I say this with the evidence, okay, that they were trying to create a black hole in 2012 using the collider technology. And I could tell you a lot about that. If you want me to go into that and we've got time, then I can. It looks as though that failed, and that they're trying to build a new collider 3 times bigger. So if you look up Future Circular Collider Program, you'll see all about it. They were trying to build one 3 times bigger. And this ties in with the end of the Mayan calendar, which supposedly ended in 2012. And on the lead up to that, they were speculating that that may be the end of the world by a black hole being created in the galaxy, okay, and ending the world. And then you've got Stephen Hawkins, Jeffrey Epstein, CERN scientists, all involved in a meeting less than 3 months before CERN supposedly discovered the Higgs boson or God particle. Okay, so Jeffrey Epstein was involved in that meeting. He links straight to Exbourne Manor. Straight to Exbourne Manor. There's also an article where it says that Stephen Hawking actually wanted CERN to create a black hole. He was trying to get them to create a black hole. And and when the relativistic heavy ion collider started to be built in New York, remember this ties in with David Icke, falsified biblical prophecies, And what I mean by that is he said the world would be devastated by earthquakes and tsunamis. Okay, so that ties in with a falsified tribulation period of earthquakes and tsunamis. Okay,
Yeah.
when the relativistic heavy ion collider was starting to be built that year, loads of scientists came in and said, look, there's a risk you're going to cause a black hole with this technology. They even came in and said it. Okay. There's loads more stuff I've got, and I know we're short of time, but a lot of the evidence I've got now ties in to the Christchurch earthquake in New Zealand, tying in with the CERN collider, and also another facility they've got in Italy, tying in with the Vatican. But again, I'll come back to this could be the ultimate deception to make us believe there's a risk to all of creation, so that we actually step up and do something about this system they've got in place. We have to consider that.
Or what about, would you consider the idea that they're also revealing this information, however subtle, but it's being found regardless, because actually then we co-create that fearful future with the power of our own manifestation and stuff. If we all think that we're going to die and stuff, that we in a way, we co-create it.
Yeah, well, I don't think we couldn't if they're actually using this technology to do what it looks like they're trying to do, that wouldn't be us actually activating it and doing it. But I think, I mean, a lot of what we're seeing, it's definitely a test to us all, isn't it? We're all being tested. We're all being pushed into a position of, do we continue funding a corrupt government, even on a ground level basis? Now, some people are still paying their taxes, and, it's got to the point where anyone that's doing that now is actually part of the issue, because you can't fund the unaliving of children, no matter what. We've got to be willing to sacrifice everything. Now, you've got people saying, yeah, but what if they put my lights out, or what if they send me a bill for not doing this or not doing that? Hold on a minute. There's evidence now that children are being sacrificed potentially and unalived and tortured and all sorts. The only right answer is you need to be willing to sacrifice everything just to save the children. Now, they could be setting that up as an experiment, potentially, but at the moment, I believe, with all of my evidence, it's so overwhelming that all of these things are really happening, and therefore I'm advising based on that information. There's no point going to a protest. There's no point being led into a Piper situation.
Exactly.
By people that are part of the system that's part of this corruption. So my strategy is now tackling head on the main corporations peacefully and legally in a way that will stop this, I believe, from going any further, and will uncover everything and will apply the pressure in the right way to the system, which are the criminal corporations running this system of fraud on the front line, and the deception behind it, tying in with the Albert Pike document.
I really resonate with what you're saying. I had a podcast just before this one that we've done, and I'm holding an event in the Tabernacle, and it's about sovereignty. And what does true sovereignty mean? And it's actually, it's an energy that you embody. So, for instance, we now discovered that by paying taxes, we're contributing towards the unaliving of children. If you continue to pay your taxes now that this information has been disclosed to you, you're choosing the devil. You're not choosing God. You're choosing to be more empowered by the fear of what happens to you personally than the sovereignty of hundreds of thousands of children that are going missing. And when you realize I can't bomb different countries, I can't partake in war through my taxes, or my taxes aren't even all going to government, they're all being siphoned into offshore accounts. When you know that, you have to stand up and have some dignity for yourself, actually, and have the courage to actually say no, and to know that you're now on the right side of history. It's an energy that you embody clearly. You're someone that lives in van life. Most people can't survive a day in a van. That's the thing. We've been broken down to such a fragile society, which needs such luxuries, that literally someone being more bothered about whether their water turns on is more important to them than the idea of children being tortured. And a lot of people, they allow cognitive dissonance. They just don't allow themselves to even believe that that's what's happening. And I love what you said here about no protest. Again, why would I be angry and screaming at a migrant hotel when I know that the migrant hotel itself is no doubt complicit in the fraud? That Tommy Robinson, who's told me to come, is complicit in the fraud. But it's funny how most protests are on a full moon or a new moon. This is the occult. They know how to siphon our energy. They know what they're doing. It's all manipulation. And I just find it quite childlike to see loads of people screaming at a protest when they don't even have a clue, the people that control the puppets. So this is really deep. This is to be a sovereign person, you really have to take your power back. You don't partake, you don't pay your taxes, and And the more that you have that courage, the more that this benevolent universe sends you new people. You find your soul tribe. You found, like me and you, find each other effortlessly, and the work just starts to flourish. But you do need to have courage, and maybe not even the fear of death, to be honest, because, like, we know that life is eternal. And so if I've incarnated at this moment to make a change, then not even the fear of death at this point will stop me. Because what are we going to do? Be small, start paying our taxes, get a job in Tesco, and start and just forget that all these children are being tortured and we're eating them. This is so insane.
It is. It is. You're absolutely right. A big part of this is coming out of your fear. I mean, they've made me feel as though I was going to be unalived so many times. They know where to find me, which is one big question. Is they're not actually taking me out, which is a huge. I struggle to understand why that may be. But they made me feel as though I was going to be car bombed. They even set up they tried to make me believe I was being poisoned by the Russians. I could talk to you about that and tell you all about that. Now, it's obviously a test to me to see if I'm going to keep going. That's the only thing I can assume from this, is they're laying these tests up to see if I'm going to go against all of my inner normal fears that people would have. And I'm willing to die for this, because it's the only right conclusion in my mind. If I believe that children are being tortured, then I've got to be willing to do absolutely anything just to help the children, And I absolutely know that this system of fraud, if we shut this down, it stops all of the world's problems. I'm honestly 100% sure this is the key to it all.
You do need courage, man. Gary, before this call, even last night, I said to my mum, I was like, "Oh, mum, I'm going to be speaking to Gary Waterman, man." And I spoke to some very powerful, people in this space. And I said, Gary's face definitely is on them whiteboards, on them Masonic lodges. They're looking at him thinking, what do we do about this person, And again, it's only because I choose God. I choose my higher self. I choose to think that we are going to change. This is over. And so, I've had a couple of death threats and them kind of energies, and you definitely have a wobble, and it's a bit scary. But when you're speaking, the work you're doing is so profound that it's almost like I see like a white light around you. It's almost like they can't personally kill you, but they'll infiltrate friends, family, partnerships. I can see why you're very cautious who you actually physically meet up, because it's like in the Matrix, women in the red dress. Who do we actually know to trust other than ourselves, and the connection, with God? Or he's infiltrating your dreams. He's showing you things. That's the most powerful thing, and I'm sure that's what's willing you on.
100%. And if anyone watches this and maybe they don't believe in a creator, whatever that is, but they obviously all believe in moral conscience. And we've all got to ask, well, where did that moral conscience come from that's built into all of us? Now, I believe that's through the creator. And I believe if you go against your moral conscience, even if you don't believe you're going against the creator because you don't believe in a creator, if you're going against your moral conscience, then we all know that's wrong, don't we? So you're choosing, you're making that choice to do what's wrong. And therefore, if this is a judgment situation being set up, then everyone's got to realise there's a potential they're going to be held accountable.
Yeah, man. Well, Gary, I want to, for today, love you and leave you now, just because I've only got a 2-3% battery. I'd love to just round this up without it me just disappearing. And to be honest, there's so much to speak about, and I'm willing to stand by your side and go deeper as and when you've got the time. Specifically, my generation need to see this stuff. I can't wait to be able to show this to my father, for instance, who's quite 3D, needs to see proof and evidence, doesn't really believe in stuff when, everything you've said, we've known it, but now finally it's in print, it's irrefutable. So this is the kind of information now that even the dense people, you really have to have strong cognitive dissonance to ignore this. Do you know what I mean? So thank you for all of your work. Thank you for your courage every single day to keep going, to put yourself on the line, to put your face out there. We deserve deep happiness on this planet. We deserve to be emancipated from mental slavery. Never ended 400 years ago. They just thought of a whole new, brand new way, And sometimes I often say I'd rather be a slave 400 years ago. At least I was in chains and I physically knew it. People are all walking around with their head held high now, thinking they're free, while they're eating children and paying for them children to be murdered. It's even sicker than it was 400 years ago. But people don't really realize.
No, and the other thing is, it looks as though, from my evidence, that we're paying for our own ultimate demise. Ultimately, if I'm right about the ultimate conclusion they're aiming for, then you're actually facilitating your own demise. But if you want me to, excuse me, if you want me to come back on, excuse me, what I'll do next time is I'll make sure I've got screenshot elements, and we can literally I can talk you through very quickly through the flow of evidence, proving some of the things that we've talked about. So if you just let me know in advance, I'll screenshot it and then I can have it on my device separately, and then you can show the evidence going through those records at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Gary, because yeah, we only literally crossed paths 2 days ago. This is very organic, very, very natural. But next time, yeah, if we, I'll be on my laptop as well. We're both doing this on our phone right now, nomadic. So next time we've got a laptop, and if we've got a little bit more preparation, then I would love to a lot more of the HMRC, not HMRC, company house stuff, and just showing it. But today, this has been profound.
Yes, thank you so much for letting me come on. You're a good man. I really appreciate it. And there's so many good people coming together now, and you're on the right side. That's what this is all about, being on the right side.
Listen, if I was to die tomorrow, Gary, in a car crash, and I meet my creator, I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud that I tried my hardest. At least I know that I'm collecting treasures of the heart. I don't need treasures of the bank account. I don't need all the treasures of my heart. Even this conversation, how many people could even fathom what we're speaking about? But we're here on the front lines during such a turbulent time, revealing these truths. So yeah, there must be a lot of ancestors with us.
Absolutely. We're in an amazing time seeing this actually all coming out. It's incredible time to be alive.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much, King. And yeah, part 2 very soon.
No worries. Take care, my friend. Thank you. Thank you.